reflect, and sometimes rethink our approach to life. By stepping outside of the rigid frameworks we often set for ourselves, we become more open to new possibilities and deeper insights. It's about embracing the unpredictability of life, using it as a catalyst for self discovery and transformation rather than resisting it. Again, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards, and today with our guest, Todd Whitaker with Diamond Recovery, we're going to be discussing family and recovery.
It's
And
Travis.
I know what did I say?
You said Todd.
Oh my gosh, Travis Whitaker. I apologize. And I know Travis because my brother's name is Travis. So how the hell did I get this one wrong? My hell. All right. Well, at least we can laugh about it. So I apologize, everyone. This is Travis Whitaker. And again, today we're going to be talking about family and recovery. And, this one could even get a little emotional for me just with the recent loss of my ex who spent years fighting her demons and was successful for a little time. But, Travis, again, man, just thank you so much for taking time. I know your schedule is so busy, and I just really appreciate individuals and love the individuals who are out there in the community making a difference and helping other people start their journey and begin. Because yourself that recovery, it's not easy, right? It's an uphill battle. However, it's worth every minute of it once you can get to that certain point, I guess.
It absolutely is, and it is it is difficult. I mean, the disease of addiction is meant to destroy everything around you. Not only yourself, but it's a dissolving agent. It's meant to destroy, your relationships, your money, your jobs, your health, whatever it is. And it does a very good job. And back in my addiction, I got sober in 2009. It was I was addicted to Oxycontin, for about 15 years. I got addicted from a sports injury, as a basketball player. But now you've got these young individuals that are addicted to fentanyl, that is so addicting and so fatal that it's extremely, it's so scary. I post all these videos of these young individuals that they just take one little dab and they die. Just the first time they're dead. And now you have carfentanil that is 100 times stronger than fentanyl. So it just keeps getting worse out there. It's killing an entire generation.
Yeah. And unfortunately, just like the title says, the family and recovery, and it's the family. The person that we love has passed, unfortunately, a lot of times by mistake, right? Accidental. However, it still leaves so much damage. Gosh, I can't even talk about never mind. I won't even try to attempt it right now. Collateral damage. How's that? Collateral damage. It leaves so much behind. And the rest of us have to sit here in our hurt and our pain. And we have to figure out now how to keep ourselves from wanting to numb ourselves from what just flipping happened to somebody that we care about.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where we always talk about, excuse me, one person may use, but everyone's affected by it, right? And as, family members now, I can see the other side. I was the one that was the addict that was hurting everyone around me, my kids and my wife and whatnot during the time of my addiction. Even when I was stuck in it, I knew what I was doing and I was hurting people, but I just didn't know how to get out of the disease. It was so strong. And when you would withdraw, you'd be so sick that you just did not know how to do it, right? Because those withdrawals make you want to die. You feel like you're going to die. They're so powerful. But when you get sober and you see the other side of that addiction, you really realize how powerful the disease is. But when you're the family members, it's hard sometimes to have boundaries. You've got to learn to have healthy boundaries to put in place to try to get your loved ones help. And when you do that, you hope that you can get them that long sobriety, right? You do the best you can. You can't hold somebody's hand. That person eventually has to want to get sober, and it is their responsibility to get sober. And like you were just saying, you wished your wife or your ex-wife or whatnot would have continued to get sober because she had had a period of time, but it's not your fault that she couldn't stay sober, if that makes sense, you know? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you just pray for that, you know, and you hope when someone's struggling that they reach out again and go, you know, I've relapsed, I need help. But I think a lot of times people, when they do relapse, feel that guilt and shame and don't do it. And unfortunately, you know, take too much, or they overdose, or they're using alone and they pass away. And it does leave a lot of grief and pain that we're, you know, the survivors, you know, that survivor guilt that you're left with. And it's really difficult. But I just want to let you know, brother, that it's not your fault. It's not your family's fault, but it's something you have to learn to let go and work through for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I know I'm really going to have to work on with myself on that, because
Yeah.
a lot of people that know me and have known me for a long time, um, I've had so many of them reach out and go, Al, don't you dare blame yourself on this one, because they know where my heart's at, you know, and I'm not patting myself on the back or anything, but you know, I stood by her for 8, 9 years, really in the big, deep depth of her addiction with alcoholism. And even when she came out of it, I mean, the 2.5 years, I mean, we had a good marriage before. I mean, our marriage was even better. I mean, she was just like this vibrant, just amazing woman who, gosh, I was falling in love with all over again, you know, because she was just so amazing. But after a certain period of time, probably after about the second year, I started noticing slippage. You know, I started, it's kind of like picture going up a side of a hill or a mountain where it's wet and slippery, and you know, you're taking steps and then you're sliding backwards, and then you're kind of taking steps and sliding backwards. And I was talking to individuals, because a lot of the people that I worked with at the time were all in long-term recovery, and they're like, Al, man, she's starting to white knuckle it. If this is what you're seeing, she's starting to white knuckle it. And, you know, and a lot of them even reached out and said, hey, do you need someone to talk to? You know, can I help you? Because she would try talking to me. And even though I've been in the recovery community and I suffered you know, an 8 year weekend alcohol and cocaine, you know, which was again just on the weekends. And I ended up losing my career, 24-year career, because of it. However, I still did not understand addiction, Travis, at all. And she would come and talk to me, and I finally understood a little bit, to where I'd get to that point going, I'm the wrong person to talk to,
Yeah.
because all I'm going to do is do what I did before and go, why can't you just do this?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you just do that? Because I'm not walked in your shoes. You
Right.
know, call somebody like Tiffany, you know, Tiffany Nakarado, or call, you got so many tools in your tool pouch. Please use them. And she would for a short period of time. And then I'd watch her put a screwdriver back in her pouch and start using a hammer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And then it finally did. And it's a tough one to get back from.
Yeah. I mean, and alcoholism, you know, is just tough because, you know, and it's funny because in 2020, when we had, you know, everything was locked down, right? That was one of those places that, you know, that was open, right? They shut
Yeah.
everything else, they shut everything else down. And I remember my daughter coming up going, so why is this an essential business? And I had to tell her, well, all the ERs are so full with COVID people. If they shut down the liquor stores, they're going to be have all these people. They're going to die and have seizures if they shut down the liquor stores. And if you think about that, I'm like, that's a reality. You shut those down, there's people dying because there's that alcohol is that bad. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the realistic of where we're at in life right now. It's not just the weekend, you know, Coors drinkers or whatever. Like you've got people that are drinking a fifth a day. And, you know, my uncle was one of them. He died at 51. You know, my mom was an alcoholic for 50 years. You know, my stepdad was an alcoholic. My real dad, you know, he was an opiate addict and died of a drug overdose. And I do believe that addiction runs in families and is addicted to DNA. You know, I was an opiate addict. You know, I got addicted, and you know that gene can be passed on. And I'm a true believer that if you don't, you know, educate your family and your kids, and you know that continues to happen. And, when we talk about family, my biggest thing is that, I truly believe my grandparents were alcoholics. I think they stopped before I got older to realize that they were. But I believe that, my aunt or my uncles and my mom had trauma passed down to them. They were all alcoholics. They didn't talk about it. And then it got passed down to me. Right. And then I became an addict. And then I passed down to my kids. And I'm the first one that got sober, right? And to recognize that and to do something about it and really do some work in my family. Now, we're not perfect. We still make mistakes. We still argue. We still have our issues, but at least we talk about it, right? We don't sweep things under the rug, and we see a therapist. We do what we need to do to work through things, because I want my grandkids to not have to go through that with my kids. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I want to end that cycle of that trauma being passed down, because it's awful. It's awful to feel like you need a drug to feel normal, to get through the day, to deal with, the high anxiety or the not feeling normal part, right? And, my addiction started when I was probably about 26. It was a little later in life, right? And it was, I think, the first time when I got married and we had insurance, and I hurt my back, and that's when I went and got the Oxycontin because my back hurt. And then I started feeling normal. I was like, shit, this feels great, and then it just continued on in my life until it was a problem. And then I'm getting arrested and I'm overdosing. I'm having seizures. I'm lying. I'm stealing. I'm like, and then I'm just burning everything down around me. I'm like, well, shit, this is what I'm supposed to do. Let's go. I didn't think I would live past the age of 30, and I married an amazing woman that put up with my crap. And, we're coming up on 31 years of marriage. you know, um, she should have got rid of me a long time ago, and 15 years of addiction. On the 20th of this month, we will celebrate 16 years of 16 years of family recovery.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and this isn't my place to say, but my son is in recovery as well. And so we celebrate as a family. We own a treatment center for men, and we have a treatment center for women for residential called Diamond Recovery Center in Kaysville. Family owned, family ran. We've all been there. It's a big deal to us. And then I also own an intervention business called Living Recovery Intervention. So our family is all about helping people find a better way to live. So we make it our life's mission to help people not continue to feel like their life doesn't matter. My wife's brother took his own life 10 years ago. Um, I've had three half sisters take their own lives. So our family's been,
Hmm.
just hit with tragedy. So we get it. And I was reading yesterday. I know I'm a little off topic here about some of the family stuff, but there's 6 million men in America that are suffering with mental health issues that they don't talk about. And we can talk about that another time. But, my big thing when we talk about the family dynamics, if the men are not talking about their mental health issues and they're sweeping it under the rug, the family whole is never going to be just whole, if that makes sense. The dynamics with it's just never going to be well. So if they're not talking about it, they're not working through it, then they're not going to teach their kids to work through it and talk about it. And the relationships are just not going to be um, preparing them for life and working through their issues and passing that down. So maybe we can do another show on that, because I'm really big about men and mental health.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Travis. I mean, seriously, because I've mentioned in the show quite a few times as well, that suicide rate has just skyrocketed with men between ages 18 and 55. I think actually now it's almost into the 60s now. And I know, at least for the generation that I grew up in, kids were to be seen, not heard. And we were always told that, if you're going to cry, we'll give you something to cry about. You need to stop, pull up your big boy pants, and you gotta stick through this. And, And I really do feel like, of course, I grew up in a house that when things didn't go right, you threw a fit. So I had a really bad anger issue in my days, and I took it all the way into my mid 20s before I realized. After I hurt somebody, I realized, man, what the hell am I doing? I don't want to be this type of person.
Yeah.
And and it was because I was holding so much in, and even the coaching. I got certified as a crisis and recovery coach last April, and my coaching has helped me so much, even get through a lot of stuff that I'm going through right now. And it's crazy because I think even as coaches, sometimes we lose our way, right? Because even coaches have coaches.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my coaches, and they were asking me when I was dealing with some of my leg stuff, and I started doing my old thing. I'm like, I'm keeping my chin up. I'm staying positive. I'm trucking through the mud, and literally, my female coach, they're a couple, said, "What the f are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Al, you're holding that beach ball under the water. What the hell are you doing?" And I went, "Oh my hell, you're right." If you've ever held a beach ball, try pushing it under the water. You can only go so far, and it gets
Yeah.
harder and harder before finally it just explodes, right? So I was doing, she goes, "When we get off this call, I want you to yell, scream, punch something, kick something, throw something, break something that you're not wanting to keep or something." She goes, "Let those feelings out."
Yeah.
Society, I think, has groomed so many of us that we're weak, especially as men. And even some women look at men as weak, not all of them, some, that when we show our emotions, it's like there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
God gave us these emotions for a reason. And I really feel that's what makes us strong. And when we can do what you said, when we can sit down and talk about it, especially as a family, my gosh, we start breaking these links, and we start forming our new links, and we start creating a whole new chain that's even stronger and harder to break apart because of that.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't have, my mom was married. God, I lost track how many times. Um, like 6 or 7 times. I don't even know, but they were all alcoholics, right? And back in the 80s, when I was a teenager, I grew up in West Point doing farm work and doing all that other stuff. And, I remember my stepdad, they came home from work, they came home, they drank a beer, they just went to their day. And I don't remember ever talking about like horrible times. I don't remember them having like real conversations. They just drank, and there was nothing really discussed until it was a blowout. And then it was just like,
Mm.
and then everything was a blowout all the time. The little things were swept under the rugs. There was no affection, there was no nothing. It was just always blowouts with everything. And, I'm sure alcohol fueled all those things, but it was like, I never learned how to communicate from any of her relationships, and because alcohol, I'm sure, was involved. And, the people she picked, she always wanted to find individuals that she could heal or fix, right? And so I never had somebody that taught me how to do these things. So I'm still a work in progress, trying to make sure that, teaching how to communicate, because that's so important, right? And I always
Yeah.
tell people that, especially the men in our recovery program, is, we don't know what we don't know. I'm not a mind reader. If we usually wait until we get so upset because we think people can read our minds, when in all, if you would just sit down and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or this is how I took this wrong, it would be like, oh, well, we didn't know that. I'm sorry. You took it that way. Was not meant that way. I just think that we would just be a better off. And we always talk about, is that a way for you just to be able to get upset and use? You pissed me off, so I went and used. So there's all these diffusers that we always talk about. If you don't communicate or learn to communicate, is that a way to just use to manipulate the situation to be able to go out and drink or go out and use? And a lot of the time, because I run a recovery group on Mondays at our facility with the guys, um, just talking about these things, and they're always like, yeah, it's just a way for me to go use. Oh, you pissed me off, you looked at me wrong, so I'm going to go use. you know and then we also talk about, And you can look at this anyway. Was it a bad 5 minutes that you manipulated into being an entire bad day? Or could you just say it was a bad 5 minutes that I didn't allow to ruin my entire day? So you just have to look at things different. And of course, being in recovery a long time allows me to look at things different. If we can just teach these younger individuals those tools, we'll have a lot more people in recovery, and we won't lose as many people. But I think, when we get back to talking about the family dynamics, um, if you have somebody that you love that gets into treatment, and you want to stick by them, I definitely recommend that. So when I do interventions, I'll have a loved one call. I won't do an intervention unless the loved one gets treatment themselves, right? So I'll send
Mm.
the loved one off to residential. The other one has to go and get individual, therapy, because it doesn't work to come back into the same environment. Like, the person will relapse, right? So that's one of the key points, because I don't run into a lot of people other than my friend Christian Smith that have been married 30 years and have gone through the hell that we put our families through, and we've stayed our relationships together, right? So I'm very grateful for him. He's a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know Christian, but he's a really good friend of mine.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that family dynamics, we're seeing it more and more, especially, in the Mormon church. You're seeing people that are starting to drink, and they're closet drinkers. You're seeing people that are taking more pills. They're taking Xanax. They're hiding it. And then you're seeing people in a younger generation that are smoking fentanyl in the vape pens, which is very scary as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I don't even know which direction to even go just because of how bad it is getting, right? And I mean, I know life has gotten tougher. How, however, it's again, I just look at it as my version of it is we just don't want to allow ourselves to go through these feelings when there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
There really isn't nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us anybody other than ourselves. And to me, that makes a big difference when we're allowed to be able to go, okay, I have to tip my hat off to my daughter and my son-in-law. Um, now that I'm living here because of my leg issue, I've really got to see really 100% of their parenting with my grandkids. And I have watched my son-in-law sit down with my grandson, my granddaughters, when they're having issues and go, talk to me. What's going on? And it's like, well, I just don't want to. Okay, well, you're not answering my question. What's the reason why? Well, it's because I just don't. No, come on, sweetie, you're not answering my question. There's a reason for it. Why are you not wanting to do this? Why are you not wanting to go to soccer practice?
Yeah.
And it's so he's been so patient and so calm that finally they come out with the reason why.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Right now, it's now, like you said, with your family, you sit down and you communicate. And it makes such a big difference when we can definitely do that. And I know it's hard with spouses. Why I'm thinking maybe that's why divorce rates going up, is because spouses, whether they let their egos get in the way or their pride or whatever, they are not allowing each other to sit down and talk about their feelings
Yeah.
when everyone has a right to them. All of us do. And especially, again, going back to family and recovery, my gosh, I didn't even think of this, Todd, or excuse me, I don't know why I keep calling you Todd, Travis, is because, you know, we talk about the recovery on the other side as a family who doesn't battle the addiction. But again, family and addiction goes back to even like you.
You froze on me, Al. Are you there?
I'm here. Yep, there we go. We got you.
There we
We
go.
got you. Yeah. I thought, okay, now he's getting pissed because I keep calling him Todd instead of Travis. And it's crazy because, like I said, my brother's name is Travis. You think
Yeah.
I'd have that engraved in my brain, but yeah. So it goes both ways. A family that doesn't use, who has a family member that's using or is an alcoholic, but then also you have the family members that have battled their own addiction.
Yeah.
So it's that toss up because,
Yeah.
like you said, it continues to go until someone decides to break the link and start something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. And my, you know what, and my family, we're always working on our communication skills because there's always something that somebody doesn't want to hear, right? There's always something somebody doesn't want to hear. So we're always working on it,
Yeah.
but at least we're able to talk about the things. I think that that's the thing that's important. But I think when you said that, I think the biggest thing that this generation is struggle with too is the social media, right? Where, I mean, I have one of my therapists doesn't have social media, and I'll go in to work and I'll bring up something about the news, and she'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? That's so nice that you don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. Because back in the 80s and stuff, right? We rode bikes, we played outside, and unless you watched like the 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock news or got the mail or got the newspaper, you didn't know. And right now, this generation, you can sit down on a weekend and watch an entire or season of something, or entire whatever, 3 seasons of something in a weekend. You don't have to
Hmm.
wait. You don't have to wait for like every Thursday for your show to come out and watch all the commercials, right? It's like you're getting notified about everything every 2 seconds. And that, I mean, that does something to your brain to where you need everything right now. And it's almost like it's a drug. We know it's a drug. You're jonesing when you don't have it. And I remember when I went to treatment in 2009, when I got sober, they took my phone away. And I remember getting phantom vibrations in my pocket for probably 2 weeks. And then after that 2 weeks, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice not to have my phone. I enjoyed not having my phone. But now I'm back to, where I own a couple businesses and I've got kids and I make excuses to look at my phone. And then all of a sudden I'm down that rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
I know I do it. I do all my own marketing and my own whatever. So I make excuses. Well, I got to go here. I got to go to Instagram. I got to do this. I got to go to LinkedIn. I got to post this. And then it's like half your day. And then you're just like, and you're always wired to have to be on, and you're just getting so much information all day long. And then it's hard to unwind at night. And then
Yeah.
you wake up and it's right back to the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, the damn addiction comes in so many different forms, right? And our brain works, this,
Yep.
Travis, the brain works the exact same way. It doesn't matter whether it's drugs, alcohol, porn, work,
Yep.
food, social media. I was talking to a really good friend yesterday. He moved to Idaho, and he and I worked on the Western Stampede Rodeo Committee for many, many years out in West Jordan. And he was talking about how there for a little while he was getting addicted to opioids. But he said really what his whole addiction was, he figured out he was addicted to um, attention. He was addicted to somebody wanting to love him the way he thought love needed to be. And he battled with it for years. And I thought, my gosh, that is something that I've not heard of before, right? That is something really interesting, that how there are people out there who are addicted to wanting that attention on a constant basis, and they're getting that dopamine hit the same way that somebody's snorting a line of cocaine or taking a shot of whiskey.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much stuff is out there in our lives
Yeah.
that can draw us away from really experiencing life.
Well, drugs, when you're first taking them, make you feel all warm and all like you're being held, and it's like a relationship, and you know what I mean, and you're all feeling good until it doesn't, and then it's like a nasty breakup, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then when you're on them, it's like you're like Jekyll and Hyde. You're two different people. It truly changes your whole. Like I remember a few pictures. My wife would say your eyes, like, they changed colors. Your skin changed color. My hair went dark. Like I was a whole different person when I was deep in my addiction. You know what I mean? She was like, your soul it was gone. It was just, and I could see it
Yeah.
through pictures, and so it truly changes you. It really does.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part too,
Yeah,
because I and I'm just guessing here because I'm looking at it on my side. I knew who my wife was, and I knew that part of her was still inside there. I knew it was there somewhere.
hmm,
I just couldn't figure out how to chisel it out. And again, it took me a long time to realize it wasn't me. And I'm just guessing your wife probably thought the same thing. That's
yeah,
why she stood by you for all these years, because she knew Travis was in there somewhere. Where's this man that I fell in love with? I
yeah,
know he's there. How can I break this damn shell and get this guy back that I want back in my life?
yep, absolutely, yeah. And
Hmm.
it took a horrific car accident that for me to change the direction, of my life and to get sober. And I was finally done digging, digging my hole, where I was like, okay, time to get help. And I remember when I first got sober, I remember my son when we started doing some work together. I remember him asking me, if I loved him because he thought I was an addiction because of him. And I think that's another great thing to kind of bring up is that we need to make sure that our kids understand that when you're in addiction, that they need to be aware that it's not their fault also, because our kids take a lot of that on to where they feel like if we love them enough that should be enough to just change when it's so hard. I mean, it's not like just quitting drinking a diet coke or something. Like it's so much deeper than that, to quit drugs and alcohol. So I made it very clear that my addiction had nothing to do with my relationship with my wife, my kids. It was my choice, to do. And then as I got older, kind of explaining that I had underlying trauma and childhood trauma, from, my family growing up. And I didn't realize I had that until, I became an addict. And then, it really started coming out that was there, just kind of lingering, that I had to do the work. So, that was something that I never knew, through my whole addiction, that my son held on to that, thinking that all of this was his fault. So those are great conversations to have with your kids, especially when you get sober, to let them go, to be free from that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Travis, because that is huge. It reminds me of a guest I had on my show probably a couple years ago. He had probably gotten to where he was about, I think he said about 8 to 9 months sober. And he said one day he's passing his son in the hall, and his son stopped and said, "Dad." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I like the dad who you are today." And then just walked right past him. And he said, literally, it brought him to his knees. It just floored him. Not because he didn't realize what his addiction was doing to his kids until that moment.
Yeah.
He's like, my gosh, he likes who I am today. Who was I before? Because
Yeah.
I thought I was being a good dad, but that's what addiction does to you as well, right? It fools us. It thinks we're doing something really cool and we're all right and we're acting fine when everyone on the outside's seeing differently, but thus in the inside, we're still seeing the same old person.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't a good dad or husband in my addiction. I wasn't a good anything. I wasn't doing anything well. It's just, I wasn't even a good drug addict. Right. I mean, we all think that
Mm.
we're great drug addicts. No, I wasn't doing anything right. And when I got sober, I mean, the first thing I wanted to do is when my kids were ready is to do all individual therapy with them. That was the first thing. It was like, I got to do this, I need to let them heal. And I know I'm going to hear stuff that it doesn't matter, what it is. They need to let it out. Right. This is stuff I did. They need to release this and heal from it. And they were worried about hurting me, and I'm like, no, don't worry about that. I'm worried about you guys carrying this stuff on the rest of your life. Let's get this out. I can take it. I did it. Let's go going. So that was very healing for them to do too. There was nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could say. There was things I didn't know I did that was a little hard to hear. things I said, when but it was like, you got to own up to that stuff. You got to get to a place where you got to allow your kids to heal. It's very important for sure.
I just can't imagine how much healing was going on at that time. I
Yeah.
mean, a ton, right? A lot of band-aids were getting ripped off
Oh yeah.
at that time. I did a show many years ago. I don't know if you know Tiffany Nacarado,
Oh
works
yeah.
for USAR. Tiffany's well known in the recovery
I
community,
love
right?
Yeah.
And she did a show, and her daughter came on, and man, all of us in the studio. I had a studio at that time. All of us was in there just bawling and crying because you're watching a mom and a daughter make a connection and finally open up, and where the daughter's going, I thought you left us because you didn't love us anymore. And she's like, no, I left because I didn't want you guys around the drugs and all the stuff that I was bringing into the house. And to be able to open it up and hear each person's point and watch that connection happen. And it took her daughter some time, to finally open up. She did what you just did, Travis. She kept tapping her on the hand, going, sweetie, it's okay. Mom can handle it. I can handle it. It's okay. And when it finally did happen, I mean, my producer's across the way running everything, and he's got tears rolling down his cheek. I got tears rolling down my cheek.
Yeah.
Both of them are my co-hosts. We're just going, my gosh, what an amazing moment to witness, to see all this healing come together, and it's good, positive energy. It's an amazing thing to see, that's for sure. Better than the opposition part of it.
I tried to do that stuff with my mom, and she didn't talk to me for 2 years.
Oh, geez.
I mean,
Wow.
that's what happens when you're still sick and you're diseased, though, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, if you have people that won't allow you to do the work, you just have to forgive them by either writing a letter and burning it, or you get to say your truth, right? And like let it go, because there's some people that just don't want to hear it. But you deserve your own healing. That's important to be able to do that. Whether it's in person or it's an empty chair work or however that looks. Because it's if it happened to you, you deserve to work through it, especially if you're a little kid. You don't deserve that.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the crazy thing about addiction. And I just tip my hat off to your wife for standing behind you for so long. You know, um, I did everything that I could for 8, 9 years. However, I had to hold my boundaries because I said if it ever happens again, I've got to. We're done, and it was still the hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
because I still wanted to be there for it. Just got to that certain point, but I'm just so grateful because so many people are quick to throw in the towel, right? They are, and I can get it in a way.
Yeah.
However, there are a small percent that do stick around and they believe in the individual, and that had to be huge for you. I mean, probably at the time you didn't maybe notice it, but I don't know. When did you figure out, my gosh, I have an amazing lady that has stuck by my side during all these years of me being an addict and a complete butthole, and still with me, right? And still with me.
Yeah.
And now, now look at our marriage. I mean, look where we're at today.
It's been one hell of a ride, I'll tell you that. I told her, I was like, you know what? I told you life would never be boring with me. I, I like to be like one of those, what is it, TLC miniseries. We did split up for like a year and a half when I got sober. And I think a lot of that was because my brain wasn't healed, right? I was still searching for outside things, even though I wasn't using drugs and alcohol. I started going like Wendover and gambling. I was like still looking for something to fill that void. And then she still had work to do on herself, to figure out what's going on there. And that's when her brother killed himself. Her mom died. And then I think 30 days later, her brother killed himself. And then that kind of brought us back together. And then we started doing more work together. And then that kind of you know, made us kind of whole again, and we realized we really did want to work it out, and do the work, and that we couldn't, live in that past anymore. We had to move forward because the past is a place of reference, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I wasn't that person anymore, but once you do that, that's one of the biggest things too that the loved ones have to remember is once the family member gets sober, right, and you're in a good place, you can't keep um, bringing up the past, right? If you're doing that work, that's the first thing a therapist will say is every time you get in a fight, you cannot keep going back there because that's the first thing. It's either going to lead them to relapse or lead them to leave, right? It's a fresh start. If you agreed that you're going to do the work and stay together, it's a fresh start. And when I went to treatment, it's no longer the old me that she misses, right? She gets the new improved me, and that's what she got. Am I perfect?
Yeah.
Hell no. Do I still make mistakes? Yes. Do I still say stupid shit? Yes. Right. I mean, it's just my ADH brain sometimes, speaks before I think. Absolutely. But today, I stay sober. I get to help people and be a better father and husband every day. Yes. Um, and that's all I've ever wanted. And I get to live that now. So, which is,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. I wouldn't change anything. Like I told you, I didn't think, Al, I would live beyond the age of 30. I thought I was going down the same path as everyone else in my family. And I prepared for that. That's where I thought I was going.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy how we get to that mindset,
I mean,
right? Where we're, yeah.
I was up to taking 400 milligrams of Oxycontin a day, with, drinking Jägermeister and, taking Xanax with it too. And then also, throwing in sleeping meds and, your body builds up to that. And then I got arrested. Undercover DEA came and arrested me at the West Valley Hospital at 2 a.m. Because I was trying to get drugs. you know, Going around to all the places. I had 12 different doctors and still didn't get me to get sober. I just kept doing the same thing over and over again and until I decided to stop. So, yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you finally decided to drop that shovel and stop digging. And
Telling you.
I'm I don't know. I just admire you, Travis, for what you're doing right now out there helping individuals. So many of us, and I know you would feel this. We can't do it alone, right? We have to have so many other people, and I've said this on quite a few shows that when Jesus was going around spreading the word, he didn't pick.
You froze up again. Are you back? Oh,
All
are you?
right, did I? There you are. Now we're back. Oh my gosh, technology is fun. I don't know if you heard anything, but I was just
I
I was
did.
just saying, it's when Jesus was going around spreading the word, right?
Yeah.
Um, he picked the imperfect ones
Yeah.
and that to go out and spread the word. And I like to see that as like the people in recovery, in long-term recovery. They're the ones that went through all the stuff and now they're out there helping everyone else. And none of us can do it alone. Even the family can't do it alone. We need help. And my gosh, it's so great to see individuals like yourself and so many others. I mean, I have just been so flippin' blessed to have gotten to meet so many amazing individuals in the recovery community that really have all been a part of my life and have helped me in my journey. And it's just, that's what I love about doing this show, because there's things that I pick up from every guest that I go, oh my gosh, okay, there's an aha moment for me. I need to look at this a little differently, right? I need to evaluate this and see it. And so we're all out there helping one another. And to me, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the opposite of when we talk about addiction is getting out there and being with other people, right? I mean,
Hmm.
addiction, we isolate and we just want to be by our alone, and that's not good. Me sitting in my own thoughts is not a good thing, right? Because my brain doesn't always go to good places, right? Because your brain, if it's not, when you're in addiction, it doesn't go to just sitting there thinking, oh, I'm great, I can do this, I can achieve this. Your brain's sitting there telling you, I'm worthless, I can't do this, no one likes you, you need to take more drugs, you need to do this. Oh, you know what, everybody thinks this or that. But when you get healthy and you stop taking drugs and you start eating better and you start sleeping and you get your hormones checked and you're taking vitamins and you're exercising, you start feeling better. And your brain's like, oh God, I'm gonna go out and do this today. I think I can do this today, right? It starts changing.
Hmm.
And then you get around like-minded individuals and you go to FTR and you go to these places, or you go to USARA, and you start feeling better about yourself, right? Then you're around a community of people that are thinking like that. And that's what it's about. But when you're alone doing drugs, you're not in a good place. So it's just, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the worst thing. That's why I tell people that first year of sobriety is so important, because your brain's in that healing process. It takes up to 5 years for your brain to fully be rewired. And it could be a little longer with these new drugs out there that are just so freaking powerful. So that's why I tell people, that first year, if you don't have the fancy car or the girlfriend or the perfect job or apartment, like, slow down, give yourself a break. You've been, destroying your body for so long. Take baby steps. And you know what? Tell yourself, look in the mirror, write notes. I'm proud of myself. I love you. You're doing great. Baby steps. When you start overwhelming yourself, that's when you start going, oh, you know what? It's too much. I'm just not going to do it, or this or that. Just put one accomplishment per day. Start with that. And then the next week, start doing a couple more, and then it just gets easier, because that's the biggest thing. Like when the guys and girls get into treatment, oh, I got to pay these bills. I got to get a job. I got to do this. I'm like, what have you been doing the last 3 years? You've been doing drugs. Like, your body's tired. It needs nutrition. It needs to heal. You need to work through, your mental health stuff. Breathe. And when you start doing those things and you take time, it just gives you a better opportunity to just reclaim your life. It really does. And so, I want to make sure people hear that, you know, give yourself a break a little bit.
I love that you said that. Thank you for putting that out there, Travis.
Yeah.
When you said it, when you started talking about it, it reminded me of what my prosthetic guy said. Because I'm still on the early stage, still working towards a lot of things. And he goes, he told me the last time I went to go visit him, he goes, Al, he says, do you remember the story of the tortoise and the hare? And I said, yeah, actually I do. He goes, points his finger right at me. He goes, you're the tortoise. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you understand what I mean? This is a slow process. And I'm like, I get it. He goes, don't try forcing anything. This is a process. So it's the recovery is that same thing. It's that process. It's that journey. And I'm doing everything on my end to enjoy this journey, right? This is something new that I've never experienced before. And I don't, it's crazy how many people, I mean, gosh, you cannot believe how many amputations that are done on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The number would blow you away. Just the hospital I had it at, they do 5 to 6 every single day, every single
Wow.
freaking day. And that's a small hospital. The larger hospitals do up to 15 to 20 a day.
Wow.
So it goes again, this is just, it's a new journey, but it's a slow process. And as long as you do the baby steps that you
Yeah.
talked about, Travis, you finally get to that point. You finally get to the top of the mountain. But I always like to say, if you reach the top of the mountain, you've reached the bottom of another one. So
Well,
it's just, again, it's that on journey.
you know what my first sponsor said? Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
There you go. That's exactly what it is, right? Pace yourself.
But we just want to get there. We want everything now, right? That's what
Yeah.
we want it now. We want it now.
Yep.
But then you get it now, and then you're like, oh, well, I don't, okay, now what? Right? Now, okay, now what? Right? It's, yeah. So I mean, it's just take some time, relax, breathe, be grateful. And a lot of times people just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to breathe and just, enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride. I can't believe I'm coming up on 16 years, and my family's coming up on 16 years. I sit and my memory's not always the best. And I was telling my wife the other day, thank goodness for Facebook memories, because I wouldn't remember half of it. That's why I'm like, I said, that's why I post so much, is so I can remember. It's like my little memory board, right?
There you go.
I can remember everything. And I'll look at stuff with my kids and I'll be like, that was 10 years ago. I can't believe it. Because
Yeah.
we don't do these. I mean, she used to do these books for all the kids and pictures and stuff. And that's all moved on since Facebook and stuff. So if you don't post stuff, I don't have these memories of everything, and so I have that. I don't know. I had some bad car wrecks, and I think that and the drug addiction, caused some of those things, to be truthful. And so I have to see pictures to remember things. So I'm very grateful for those opportunities, because then it just makes me excited, and it helps fuel me a little bit, to see those pictures and just be grateful of the memories. And we try to do, since I got sober, we do a lot more traveling. Oh, looks like you're reconnecting again. I'll wait for you to come back, Al. Are you there?
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, we got it again.
What I was going to say is that, why I post so much and share so much is because, again, it's like my memory board, right? When I was stuck in my addiction, we couldn't afford to travel or do anything, right? Because I was spending all our money. I think in those 15 years, I spent probably close to $250 to $300,000, on pills and everything else. So when I got sober, I made my amends. I paid back family members money I owed them. And then we started making a little bit of money. We started traveling, because it was important for us to make memories with our kids, because we didn't ever get to do anything. We'd go to Bear Lake once in a while, but we didn't get to do anything with them. So we started going to Disneyland. We started doing some other things. And so we post about that so we can see it, the memories, right, come up. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life creating memories with our kids, because we didn't get to do that when they were little. And that's how I want to live the rest of my life. And I don't care what anybody thinks, right? Because we deserve it and we've earned it. And she said, you're absolutely right. And so I'm excited to be able to do that for the rest of our lives, because that's important to us. I grew up, we didn't have any money. We had church food, powdered milk you'd mix with water and all those things. So now we're finally at a place that we get to celebrate and do those. And the kids love it. Our kids are older, 29, 26, and 21. And it's pretty cool.
Good
So
for you.
those are the great things about family and recovery. And I like to share that with people. And that's the platform Facebook and Instagram allows you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just painted a really good picture, of what you can expect in recovery,
Yeah.
right? How life completely does a 360 and changes. You go from this darkness to this amazing light. And what's crazy is the majority of the people that I talk to says it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
It just continues to keep getting better. And I mean, see, I got goosebumps even just saying that, because I just, how can you look at life being better than what it is already? But it is. Just like, how can you look at life getting worse than what it already is? You know,
Yeah.
it can happen until you drop that shovel.
I remember writing my obituary in treatment, and that was a big shocker to me. That was a big one when that was one of our assignments. And I remember going, I don't think anybody would show up to my funeral. What, what,
Wow.
what would they say? So that was a big life changing moment for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, thank you for your time. I mean, we're up here about an hour. I just really appreciate you
Yeah.
taking time. I'm glad that finally had an opportunity to get you on the show, because I've watched a lot of your social media, right? And I'm like, I got to get this guy to come on the show. You just seemed like a really good dude to me. I feel like I've known you. We've never met in
Yeah.
person, but I feel like I've known you for a long time. So I love connections like that,
Yeah.
which is really good. Is To sum it up here, is there anything that you'd like to share with family members out there? Something that we missed or something? I mean, do you have something positive to share with them?
I always like to tell family members, don't allow your loved ones to keep digging. Help them raise the bottom.
All right. I love that. I've never heard that before.
Yep. Help them raise the bottom. Don't let them keep digging, because that could be death. You have ways to have boundaries to help raise that bottom, to get them help. And so reach out to some professionals, and they'll help you do that.
Cool. Now, if also let's throw out some diamond recovery here. If
Yeah.
someone is interested to learn about diamond recovery, I'll make sure that your website and stuff like that is in the captions. But how do they find you?
Yeah. Just go to diamondrecoverycenter.com, or you can call us at 866-271-9899.
Okay. And repeat that number for me real quick.
866-271
Okay.
9899.
9899. Okay.
Yep. And we have
Awesome.
an all female residential and an all male. So we're gender specific.
Okay. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, again, thank you for your time. Don't leave when I hit stop record. Hang on for a
Okay.
second. But again, thank you for all your time. And I just want to say thank you to all your listeners. You guys are the ones that's making this possible. I like to say, because last March was we hit our 4th birthday. I mean, Todd here is, or not Todd, Travis again. I'm really good at saying Travis, and I go right back to
You
Todd
owe me
again.
coffee.
So, yeah, I will definitely owe you coffee. So, gosh, where was it? Oh, Travis is here. He's like the 334th episode. So I'm just very grateful to all our guests, all our listeners, so many people just to say thank you to. I love and appreciate all of you. We're going to end it with this, as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out. All right. It looked like it stopped. Cool.
Perfect.
Travis, thank you so much, buddy. I really do appreciate